If you don't have adequate humus, then the soil cannot accumulate enough energy. And what very few people realize is that plants grow along the electrical field created by the exchange between the sun and the earth. Water carries what's called a diamagnetic charge, or a negative charge. Oxygen carries a paramagnetic charge, and the sun is so powerful it splits photons into positive and negative monopoles. So a monopole is like a magnet with only one pole. Only the sun has the power in our solar system to split a photon into a monopole. That research was done and exposed by Philip Callahan, a famous researcher who has written several books on this topic. And he was a scientist. So what Callahan showed is that certain rocks, which are classified as paramagnetic, will draw in the paramagnetic monopoles from the sun, and water and soil and the fleshy bodies of the plants draw in the diamagnetic monopoles. And when you put a positive and a negative together in a circuit, you got work potential. Why this is important is because it is the electromagnetic health of the soil that generates a huge amount of our electromagnetic field that protects the earth from cosmic radiation and from stray bodies such as asteroids hitting the planet. And the electrical field runs perpendicular to the magnetic field. So if you've ever seen a picture of the Earth's magnetic field, the Earth is on a 23-degree axis, the magnetic field wraps itself around the globe, and the plants grow at a 90-degree angle to the magnetic field. Plants and trees grow exactly perpendicular to the magnetic field, and the weaker the soil is, the less of a magnetic field there is, and the less of a magnetic field there is, the less of an impulse to rise and become there is in the plants. Does that make sense? So as our soils die, the energy systems of the planet die. And since he's got to change tape, I'll conclude. You remember in Star Wars when they would tell Mr. Scotty to put up the shield, right? That took a lot of energy. Remember when the ship was running out of energy, they couldn't put the shield up, which is scary, right? Someone can get you with some kind of famous weapon, you know, zap ya. Well, what concerns me is that our shields are down. Our soil is dying. We're running out of water. Our medical system's too busy selling you drugs, and our chemical industry is too busy poisoning the soil to give a damn. And what we're doing is we've lowered the shield. And that leaves the door wide open for disease, because your shield against disease is health. And you can't have health without nutrition, and you can't have nutrition without soil. And you can't have soil that's healthy if you get too much ultraviolet radiation, and if the earth starts getting beat up by asteroids and other bodies. So people are very ignorant to the importance of the soil. You still need time to change? Hour 2. We're getting into the good stuff. The stuff you need to know to stay alive. Okay? How many of you have ever been near a compost pile or have composted? Any of you? So you know as a compost pile matures, it gets hotter, doesn't it? So typically a compost pile reaches its peak at about 140, 142 degrees. Okay? Why that happens is because you're actually witnessing the metabolism of the microorganisms. So just like you have a metabolism, when you start exercising, you get hot, and you have to sweat to cool your body down so it doesn't overheat. So when the microorganisms in the soil are metabolizing the organic matter in the soil, it actually creates heat. The microorganisms in the soil are very, very important, particularly in the places where the ground gets cold in the winter, because the metabolism of the microorganism keeps the soil from freezing too hard or too deep, so that the roots of the plants don't die, and so that the microorganisms in the soil don't die. The same way you wouldn't want to freeze to death, neither would the microorganisms. If there's not enough organic matter in the soil, then the microorganisms don't have anything to eat. If you don't fertilize the soils, then the microorganisms don't have enough to eat. So on farming fields that are open and don't have exposure to nature, which is not natural. You see, we didn't used to have farming fields. If you walk out in the woods, you see the ground's covered with organic matter. It's all the needles and leaves and plants that are going through their life cycle. The animals poop on the ground, the birds poop on the ground, the animals die and lay on the ground, so everything is recycled perpetually. So year-round, there's always food for the microorganisms to maintain their metabolism, and the research clearly shows that in the summer, when the ground gets hot, the microorganisms cool the ground by controlling water flow. They regulate the water flow, and the humus holds on to the water, okay? So if you don't have enough humus, you can't hold water, you can't cool the earth. It's very, very interesting with our greenhouse effect that we're experiencing, because we've cut down so much of the natural foliage that the earth is literally overheating. It's overheating. It's got an inflammatory process. And you know how a human being, if your temperature rises above 103 degrees, your chances of dying get really good. And this is what, in a hospital, what they'll do is they put you in a bathtub full of ice cubes to try to bring your temperature down so that you don't die. Well, our planet has a fever. And the symptoms of inflammation in the human body are pain, heat, redness, and swelling. What's the most commonly prescribed medical drugs in the world? Anti-inflammatories. Now, isn't it interesting? Human beings are a product of the earth. We are all an expression of the condition of the earth. It's hard to be healthier than the planet is, isn't it? How do you do that, right? So the most commonly prescribed drugs in the world are anti-inflammatories because the earth itself is inflamed, and because of the mismanagement of the earth, we're having a mismanagement of human beings. So if you keep taking drugs to lower your temperature and never look at what's causing the problem, you just die with a bunch of drugs in your body. Congratulations. So we've got to start paying attention to the fact that the earth itself is giving us a major indicator that it's in a disease state. And if you can identify that, then you've just become the doctor, right? If you were a child and you were sick, who's the first one usually to identify that? Your mother. Usually your mother, sometimes your father, but it's usually your mother. Your mother says, come here, your cheeks are awful red. Oh boy, your forehead, honey, you're getting sick. It's time for you to, no more playing, we got to calm you down. Your immune system needs energy, you're going to rest, right? And that's what mom does. Mom doesn't say, oh, you're getting hotter, here, take an anti-inflammatory and get out there and mow the yard. Right? But that's exactly what the doctors do, and that's what the doctors do to the athletes that I work with all the time. It's worse than that. Here, take this shot. See, now your knee doesn't hurt. You don't have a knee problem anymore. Pretty cool, eh? So, the microorganisms, actually, if you look at the research, provide the majority of a plant's immune system. Most of a plant's immune system is provided for it by symbiotic microorganisms. The microorganisms are in a symbiotic relationship with the plants, okay?